Why I Write, Anthony Wendell Riggs. A people may become great through many means, but there is one measure by which its greatness is recognized and acknowledged. The final measure of the greatness of all peoples is the amount and standard of the literature and art they have produced. The world does not know that a people is great until that people produces great literature and art. James Weldon Johnson. I love to write since I was a little child. English composition and English literature were my favorite subjects. I won a prize in a competition that was held among secondary school children in Grenada during the early 70s. The topic dealt with CARIFTA, Caribbean Free Trade Association. I remember the day I had to go to the Prime Minister Eric Gary's residence at Mount Royal to receive a prize. The prize was a book. I don't know what became of that book. Now, I shook Mr. Gary's hand many times because he used to visit my father often while I lived at Manjalo. They knew each other well from the years spent in Aruba. Oh, how I wish I'd quizzed my father about life in Aruba. Now, there were teachers who spotted the ability in me very, very early. I think of Joan Ferreira, Miss Joan Ferreira, who taught at the St. John's Christian Secondary School. She read my essays to the class. I think of Mr. James Andrews, who taught at the St. George's Catholic Boys' School. Rest in peace. He once told me that I'll be a brilliant writer one day. So important when teachers encourage students. I remember the words of Sister Joy Shaper, missionary and teacher at the St. John's Christian Secondary School. She once told the class that when we write, make use of local color. She advised us to look around us, make use of our senses when we write. I took her advice, and I've seen how effective that is. I must mention a woman, Professor Breidenthal, who taught at Brooklyn College. I had completed a 25-page paper on Lech Walesa and the Polish Solidarity Movement. And she looked at me and said, "You know you write well?" Those words again coming from a teacher, very inspiring. For some reason though, I committed to memory much of what I saw while I was growing up in Grenada and what I observed when I traveled. I saw old Mr. Marisho on the sand of Pandy Beach, and I wrote a poem about that years ago. I saw him more than 40 years ago, but he remained in my thoughts so that I could write about him years later. I was fortunate while growing up in Grenada to be exposed to the writings of the major English and American authors and poets. Before I was 10 years old, I was already reading the words of Longfellow, Tennyson, Keats, Hardy, and others. And then I was exposed to some of the West Indian writers. There were not too many of them back then, but the sprinkling I had, and I was able to connect with people like Derek Walcott, V.S. Naipaul, George Lamming, and John Carew. I love Timothy Calendar's story, An Honest Thief, which is one of the stories in the book called The Sun's Eye. I like the piece by Derek Walcott titled As John to Patmos. The story Catching Crabs by George Lamming always reminded me of my boyhood days. I must say, though, that once I began to write with the intention of publishing, I did not go back to those writings because I wanted to I wanted to develop my own distinct style and ideas. The West Indian that had a big effect on me was G.C.H. Thomas, and a Jamaican who wrote in the 1940s, Evan Jones. G.C.H. Thomas wrote Ruler in Haruna, a very humorous book indeed. I like Evan Jones' Song of the Banana Man. Tourist white man wiping his face, met me in Golden Grove Marketplace. You know why I like it? Because it's my kind of style. He fused dialect with standard English. Now, I opted for the mixture of the vernacular with standard English because it is my belief that it will have more appeal. The colloquialism, the slang is the flavor, the spice that attracts people, and we are noted for spice. So my literary journey was strengthened when I read the words and works of African American writers during my college years. Influence from the African American writers, people like writing the Black Writers of America, a comprehensive anthology. Authors from the University of Illinois, Richard Barksdale and Kenneth Kinnaman. The above was one of the African books I studied at Brooklyn College. James Weldon Johnson, writer of Black Manhattan. Langston Hughes, and I remember the words, the Negro speaks of rivers. I have known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood veins. My soul has grown deep as the rivers use. Claude McKay, the Jamaican. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark like the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, Mackay. Now, what have I gained from the combination of writers from various backgrounds? Inspiration. Trying to perfect my artistic style. I write on inspiration. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I get up. If I don't feel it, I don't write it. So I wake at night, get on a computer when the inspiration strikes. It is on occasion like those that I don't have to struggle to write because the thoughts flow really. Now I must talk about dialect. This is what I would say about dialect. It is the most effective, and this is a quotation, it is the most effective linguistic medium to articulate the pulse, the rhythm, the culture, and the beauty of Caribbean life. And I would say Grenadian life. I include the dialect that captures the mood and gives my writing authenticity. Finally, I want to big up Mr. H.D. Batiste, past head teacher of the Grenada Boys Secondary School and the Anglican High School, who taught me English literature at his home when the teacher could not be found to teach English at the A level at the St. John's Christian Secondary School. I often say that he taught the GBSS boys, but I had private lessons with Mr. H.D. Batiste. God rest in peace. God bless his soul. And finally, again, Sister Joy Shaper at the St. John's Christian Secondary School, who told us to look around and write about our Grenadian life because we were reading about apples and apricots and America and all that. But we too have our story to tell. And I took her advice. She encouraged us to write about Caribbean life. Write, my students, write. And this in memory of Sister Joy Shaper. Write, she urges, write. Wake up your senses and write. Paint the pictures the world awaits. Observe the waves as they smash against smooth rocks. Write, my students, write. Listen as raindrops touch petals, those cheerful angels in the wind. Stare at myriad glittering eyes twinkling the Spice Island sky. Write, my students, write. Wake up your senses and write. Reveal the local color of evening sun bowing in the horizon far, and flamboyant trees glowing on the hillside. Write. Let the world inhale the spices that rise from your pages. Let the world know that Tennyson, Dunbar, Hemingway, and Longfellow can spring from our Grenadian sand. Anthony Wendell de Riggs, and her words linger. Make use of local color. God bless.